something that I think I can speak universally. We're really looking forward to a bright 2021. Obviously, some very challenging transitions that are happening right now, and some difficult times for many of us as we watched some disturbing video yesterday and witnessed some very disturbing events down in Washington, D.C. But I hope and pray that our leaders can look past differences and find common ground, because that's what humans do, and that's what we need from our leaders. So with that, I'm going to jump right into our bi-weekly Return to Learn presentation. So welcome tonight. A little interesting note here. My first slide, you know that we're doing some work at our schools, and our middle school, our oldest school, back from the 1930s, there's some demolition going on in part of the original structure. And I pulled a couple of bricks out from the original structure from the dumpster that was down there, because it's intriguing. If you know anything about bricks, there's always a label on the bricks. Usually it's in letters, and these bricks were lettered JJJ. So I did a little bit of research on it, and JJJ is actually the insignia for the J.J. Jova Brickyard, which was down in Roston, started back in the 1890s, and these bricks obviously are from the 1930s when that school was built. So I put up on the screen there a little shot there of the Hudson River landscape. It has also the Rose Brick Company, the Gardner establishment, the Chickering establishment, obviously the Cedar Hill cemeteries up there, the Rose Brick Company. There's even a note for dance camera, but that was obviously well before the dance camera power plant, but it's a knoll there on the shore of the Hudson River. We also noticed down near Roston Station, there was a train depot that ran down there along the Hudson River as well for commerce. So really kind of a neat little piece. I took a brick down and a copy of the map down to Supervisor Lanzetta's office and donated to him to maybe give to the town historian. But I just thought it was a kind of a neat little taste of some Marlboro history from the J.J. Jova Brickyard, right in our own backyard. And really, if you know anything about this region, the Hudson River, this stretch all the way down close to West Point, there were a lot of brick factories along the Hudson River. So a lot of the right raw materials are in the soils in this region. So, and it was also certainly easy to produce the bricks, but then also even easier to float them down the Hudson River down to New York City for construction and for also distribution to that port. So I thought just kind of a neat little thing, and I figured I'd start us off with that. So very exciting also, Tuesday we are open for in-person hybrid learning as we are scheduled. So can't wait to see our kids back in the buildings and see our kindergartners all 4 days, and also certain select populations in our special education and ENL populations 4 days a week, starting this week, next week I should say. So we're very, very excited about that. Obviously, just like prior to the winter break, we're watching the rates. You guys see the headlines as much as I do. We're carefully and cautiously watching that. We will continue with a similar strategy with isolations and quarantines. Obviously, right now, we're in a manageable situation, so we'll watch how that plays out through the coming weeks. And I also will be sending out that COVID testing permission paper slip that we had talked about. I'm absolutely committed to this community and this board that we will not move forward with a testing program until the Board of Education knows all the ins and outs of it and fully approves the program. We do have a contract that we have to work on that I'll get to in just a few minutes, but certainly by sending out the permission forms and giving the families some information about what a COVID testing program would be for our school district, will to me ultimately be the most appropriate poll to see, is this something that the public or the families want to have their children involved with. So actually, let me get into some of the details on that. So progress towards us preparing for a COVID testing project. If we are closed down because of COVID, there are a series of regulations and rules, and believe it or not, PowerPoint presentations, unfortunately only PowerPoint presentations from the governor, that would allow us to remain open for the testing program. Some details about that testing program are continuously moving targets. So anytime we speak will probably be new information, but just so you know, our nursing staff has been trained on the proper administration of the rapid test. We do have the rapid tests in our possession for the first round of testing if we do have to test. Still under development and almost finished is a contract that we have to have with the Ulster County Department of Health that includes the proper licensing and protections for the school district and for the county. There's also a privacy agreement that we have for educational and health records that are incorporated in with that as well. And then we'll work through the final logistics of actually conducting the tests. Those are the pieces that I will want to make sure that the Board of Education is very comfortable with if we are going to move into that direction. My hope is that we do not have to institute a testing program, but we want to try to be prepared in the event that we potentially do have to do that. So we are working down that path, and we'll inform the board if that reality becomes part of our program. And again, the Board of Education in this public forum will be fully briefed, and ultimately will make the decision on what we do. So I think getting that information from families as to whether or not there's a commitment to get enough people tested will allow us to move forward with testing. Just a little look ahead on the winter-spring time frame. So here we are in the middle of winter. I'm expecting very soon to be discussing the 21-22 budget with the Board of Education. We're paying very careful attention to local, state, and federal, rapidly developing news items regarding state finances. As a matter of fact, yesterday's update with the governor, he announced that he is completely rewriting his State of the Union speech because it is confirmed that Joe Biden will become the president of the United States on January 20th. And the Senate has now turned over to Democratic control. So he was actually kind of giddy about that. It was an odd press conference. I don't know if anybody saw it, but he's seeing that as a cash cow for the state and hoping to have that fill a significant budget deficit that he claims to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 billion. So instead of going to the Buffalo Bills game on over the weekend, he announced that he will be staying home and rewriting his State of the State speech that's going to be next week. So, of course, we'll be on the edge of our seat waiting to see what that State of the State says. And ultimately, that leads into his initial budget presentation and proposal that we live and die on. So we live and die on the governor and the state legislature coming to terms in January, February, and March, and ultimately adopting a budget by April 1st, because that budget determines how much state aid we get. So very, very important series of months here, and you all know what my involvement has been from a political action perspective, so we'll be putting together those pieces to make sure that our elected representatives, Senator Stupas and Assemblyman Jacobson, are fully aware of what Marlborough's issues are as it relates to the state budget. We're also in the thick of preparing for vaccine distribution. I've been on the phone with the Department of Health and the County Executive's Office in both Ulster and Orange County this week. The governor has announced the preparations for phase 1B. That's the next phase in the vaccine rollout. Included in phase 1B, as the state is now wrapping up phase 1A, is education staff is also included in that. And right now, the two county executives and the departments of health are anticipating that in late January, there should be a beginning of phase 1B. So I'll be working with our staff to determine which of our staff members are interested in getting inoculated for COVID-19, and working then with the Department of Health and Ulster County up in Kingston on getting those people registered and scheduled for the vaccination. Quarantine rules are still things that we have to deal with in our reality. As I understand it, the timeline for the phase 1B vaccination rollout, it's the Moderna vaccine that the county uses, and that is a 2-dose vaccine. So the first dose would be administered on obviously your first visit, and then 28 days later, you have to go back for your second dose. The vaccine has a full level of effectiveness after the second dose, that's 6 to 10 days after the second dose. So if you just extrapolate that out, end of January, 28 days later is the end of February, then 6 to 10 days later from that gets you into the first or second week of March. Sometime in the first or second week of March, our education sector statewide gets to a level of, and this is the adults, by the way, the staff, gets to a level, those that took it, gets to a level of protection because of the vaccine. So that's the understanding that I have of it right now. Certainly the rollout time could change. It could be a week earlier, it could be a week later, but it all depends upon when the state finishes with the 1A group and then has enough supply to move into the 1B group. State right now is receiving about 300,000 vaccines a week, and those get distributed out through their channels. So it's moving forward. So obviously with the quarantine rules, in order for us to remain in person, we're going to take the same approach where we will isolate and quarantine as needed. The state has, the county, Ulster County has changed the formula for us. So what we had been using with a point system that actually reduced the number of people that were on quarantine because we were able to use a calculus that really determined based on a number of factors, only those in the closest of proximity to a potential positive case to quarantine. Now the county has moved to an all or nothing quarantine approach. So if there's a positive case in a classroom or an office space, everyone quarantines. There's no point system anymore. So they've taken a much more stringent approach to the short-term look at how we're approaching quarantine and protecting for COVID. So how that actually plays out is uncharted territory for us. We'll start to see that reality beginning Tuesday when our children return. In the long term, again, I think I brought it up at the last meeting. I question what is the result of the vaccine. Does that allow us to bring the children back in more days, more quickly? Does that allow us to have a spring rollout of a full return to learning if we have enough of our adults that are inoculated? Again, that would require a change in the current rules from the governor's office. But it's certainly one of those things that I wonder out loud about and certainly hope for. So those are the pieces that we look at for the short and for the long term. And just to give a little more specificity to, again, looking into the future. So I listed out the series of meetings that we have between now and the end of May. January and February, we're going to be fine-tuning our look at our financial outlook, and I'll be notifying the Board of Education of the legislative priorities, be very similar to last year's, that I'll be working with our legislative leaders on. Beginning February 4th, we'll, depending upon what the governor rolls out, we'll start with a budget overview to give the board a snapshot of a baseline, what the 21-22 budget could look like. And then March really gets into some budget discussions based on what news is coming out of Albany. If you recall, most of March typically goes into a holding pattern depending upon how things are developing with our budget and our discussions. But I'd also like to weave into that a school year review and ask Mrs. Heck to coordinate with our principals, kind of a look back on reflecting how the school year went, what was good, what was bad, what was indifferent, and what do we need to make adjustments for looking into the fall. So depending upon how the budget process plays out with the governor, either March 11th or March 25th, we'll either a budget workshop or a school year in review. I'm also looking at the second meeting of February to have a full Vision 2020 update. Our architect and our construction management firms would come in and do a full presentation to the Board of Education and our public on giving a 360 view of where we are with the project and give us a full update and a prediction on how things are moving along. And then you can see the rest of the dates will all right out through to the May 18th budget vote. And next thing you know, we're in June graduating and moving kids up. So as I started to put together this slide, I quickly blinked and saw myself in June and started to wonder, are we going to have a regular graduation ceremony, or is there going to be some different mix to it? So, I think we really did some amazing things last year with our graduation ceremony. So I want to use that as our baseline, but hope for a full regular graduation ceremony where we can get back to some level of normalcy. So That's my look into the future, a snapshot of our COVID situation, our testing potential, the vaccine realities coming towards us, and a look ahead on the coming meetings that will be a very busy winter and spring for us. So with that, I can answer any questions if you have, and just want to let everybody know that we've got another board meeting coming up in 2 weeks on January 1st.
All right, thank you, Mike. Let's try to use the raise the hand function here so we can go ahead. Anybody have any questions? No questions? I have one, Mike. For the educational staff to get vaccines, is that going to be done outside of the school, or the nurses that we got training are involved in that at all?
Yeah, great question. It will be outside of the school. We actually did ask that specific question with the county. We put together like mobile vaccination vans or something like that, and they said that the logistics around that are significantly way too complex. So there are 2 or 3 current testing sites set up by the Department of Health, and we will have to go to those sites. So working on the specifics on how that's going to work is part of what we'll work with Mark Ryder and the Department of Health on over the coming weeks. So right now, the 2 sites I believe are up in Kingston and Ellenville. So and I think they're looking to open up another one either at SUNY New Paltz or New Paltz Town itself.
Now, they are just for the education staff in the region, or they're just general vaccination, and that's where we're going to go, where the education staff is going to go?
Great question. I believe those sites will be up no matter what. And then as I listen to the governor, he's expanding for the general public rollout to something like 3,000 or 4,000 sites around the state between SUNYs, pharmacies, doctors' offices, medical clinics, and things like that. So these are more for the targeted, these initial phased groups. So once it goes out to the general public, that virtually anybody can sign up for, the options expand. Similar like the flu shot, where you go down to CVS.
Right. Okay, very promising. Thanks.
Yeah.
Michael Connors, you have your hand up?
Yeah, are these vaccinations going to be compulsory ultimately? Do you have any guidance on that? I do have some concerns over the mercury and heavy metals content within the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines. And I just wanted to know whether or not these are going to be mandatory or not.
Right now, they're not. No. So the 1A group is healthcare workers and elderly in facilities, and it's an optional vaccination. And as I understand it, with us as a public employer in the state's rules right now, it's still an optional vaccine as well.
Okay, thanks. James, you have your hand. Are you okay, Mike? You're done with your questions? Okay. James?
Thanks. Mike, I know we're looking at setting up this testing protocol, but the governor last week had said, and it's at the whim of the governor, that based on his findings, he feels schools are the safest place for the kids, and he feels that we should be keeping them open. Have we actually received any guidance of what this testing protocol is going to be? Is he rescinding it? It was very confusing, his press conference last week when he discussed it. He said if the school's rates are lower, then they can stay in school. But have we heard anything more than last meeting about these testing guidelines, I guess, is what I'm getting at?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have heard more, and it's decreed by PowerPoint, which is a big part of the problem. So both county attorneys, the Ulster County Attorney and the Orange County Attorney, are very, very clear, as is the County Executive's Office. It is very difficult to create a protocol for anything by PowerPoint, which is really from his presentations, from his press conferences. So we do wait for executive orders. There have been no new executive orders regarding the testing requirements. The last executive order dealt with yellow, orange, and red zones. And if a region was designated or a zip code was designated as yellow, red, or orange, it kicked in a series of requirements. Still today, there are 3 yellow zones nearest to us. That would be Newburgh, most of Newburgh, town and city, Middletown, and part of Highland Falls, Fort Montgomery School District. Those 3 schools are designated as yellow. According to both Ulster County Department of Health and Orange County Department of Health, the metric that got those 3 school districts into a yellow zone has now been exceeded for all of Orange and Ulster counties. So the metric has now changed because the governor has spoken about not only looking at the positivity rate, but something to the effect regarding hospitalization rates, but has not pulled the curtain back on what the details are there, Jake. So you're hitting the nail on the head. It was extraordinarily confusing. So we're just getting ourselves prepared to do the logistics and mechanics of running a testing program. If we're going to do it, again, you'll get fully briefed and ultimately give me the authority to sign the agreement or not. I don't know if we're going to be required to, James. That really is what it's going to come down to. So that's the best I have for you.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, no, it was just very confusing, and I didn't know if anything else came, but thank you.
I am waiting for that call from the governor's office.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. Last call. Anybody have anything? Okay, then let's go to the agenda. So next thing would be Boaster's report. Since Frank's not here, we won't have that report tonight. I'm not even sure when the last meeting was, if it was even held since our last meeting.
It's January 28th. We just got
Okay.
the invite yesterday.
Okay, so you probably don't have one for Orange Boaster's Day.
Orange Boaster's, the Orange County Hotspot does not meet in January. Their next meeting is February.
Okay, so no report there too. Thank
No,
you.
either. Yes. But next meeting we should have a February report for in our February meeting we should have both Ulster and Orange.
Okay, great. Thank you. Since we don't have the ability to do public comments, we'll jump right into the consent agenda. So let me read the recommended action. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the contracts, agreements, and reports as presented. Personnel recommendations, official BOE meeting minutes of 12/17/2020, budget increase, donation, CSE/CPSE recommendations, and audit corrective action plans. Can I have a motion to accept the recommended action? Let me get to the picture. Karen, accept the motion. Do I have a second? Joanne. Okay. Open up for questions. Anybody have any questions or discussion points? Mike Connors, I see you have your hand up. There you go.
Yes, John. Yeah, I had sent an email that, and I apologize, I neglected to include Mike Brooks in on it. There was an item under, skip to it, 3, you see on the budget increase item, where it looks like it's just an offset, where we received a refund and then it was then expended. Is that correct?
Yeah, so in order to expend a revenue, you have to have it in a budget. So that's part of a insurance recovery for the vehicle. Am I right, Rose? It's part of the insurance payment for the truck?
Actually,
or is that for the server?
this is for the server.
Yeah, so we had a computer server that we were able to funnel through, a computer replacement server that we were able to push through our insurance company. So that check for $7,407.75 is a new revenue. In order for us to use that specifically towards offsetting the cost of buying the new server, we need to increase the budget.
Okay, so that'll be the same when the money comes through for the van as well?
Yes, unless it already did. Rose, did that one come in yet?
We already did the vans, the trucks.
Yeah, we did that, yeah. So,
All right, so having received those and then approving that, does that now increase our baseline for next year?
no, when we calculate the tax cap, it's based on the approved budget from voters back in May. So these are, I mean, you get, a lot of times we get donations and revenue that don't necessarily increase the budget. So for example, we get $175,000 pilot payment. When we get that payment, well, that's different because that's built into the budget. If someone donates $5,000 to the good of the order, and we're just going to put it into the general fund and it'll become fund balance, we don't necessarily need to increase the budget because we're not looking to expend that amount. But if we want to be able to expend that amount in the current year budget, you also then have to increase the budget to be able to expend that amount. So it is an offset, but it's not calculated into the budget. So the 21-22 budget, the tax cap for that budget will be based on the approved budget for May.
Okay, so we don't have to do a similar action though when we receive contributions in kind if we then expend those. For example, if we received, I don't know, 5,000 masks, we wouldn't include the value of those masks in income and then expend them, even though in business accounting under the barter rules, we would have to do the same thing. We would have to do that.
Correct, correct. We don't have to do it for money.
Karen Brooks, you have a hand up, it looks like?
Yes, I just wanted to extend a thank you for the Marlboro Uniqlo for the $1,000 donation for the backpack program. It's a very needed program. I think that was very generous, and I just want to extend a thank you to them for our students.
Okay, Mike, you have your hand up still. Are you good?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that you know, to our financial staff that given the you know, the report from the CPA, the auditor, that they've done an excellent job this year in their reporting and keeping our numbers and financial systems tight. The action that we see from the auditing firm basically attests that these guys are doing it. That the people in our financial department are doing a very good job.
Thank you, Mr. Connors.
Okay, anybody else? Joanne, go ahead.
All right. So I have a question on the personnel agenda. Is that the certified for the elementary MFA? Is that a new position or is that one of the positions that we're just filling?
That is a new position.
And that will be doing.
That's the new position that you folks created in our last meeting for the new AIS program.
All right, I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike Connors?
Yeah, I did have just a comment on that. Have we polled our existing teachers to see if they are willing or able to pick up classes? I know sometimes in the past, the teachers have actually picked up some of the classes, which has a couple of benefits. One, of course, being the net cost to us as opposed to hiring would be reduced because we're already paying benefits and other costs there. And I think you paid them a flat rate. Again, this is prior to my being on the board, but from listening in on some of the meetings. Whether or not we've considered this in our need to add new positions, and especially the subs and so on.
Yeah, it's a great question. We do consider that every time we look at needs, and it's called a sixth teaching position, or sixth teaching assignment, and that only is eligible and viable for 7 through 12. Elementary through 6 already teaches 6 classes, so and there's a K-5 really in our district. This is an elementary position, so it really, first of all, there's not a mechanism in the contract for them to teach an additional class, and in their day, they're not sectioned out by period, so they teach, you know, their whole class for the day, so there really isn't a period in their scheduled
So-
elementary school. So that model doesn't work in an elementary school.
Okay, so essentially they're already capped.
Correct. And we do have a few sixth period positions that we have right now, maybe 2 or 3 at the secondary level in the middle school and high school. And it is a you know, a streamlined way to approach adding positions. If you can't add if you don't need 5 sections, there's no need to buy 5 sections. You can buy just 1 or 2 by adding a 6th period onto someone that can take that additional period on. And it is significantly cheaper.
Okay, we do that again. I don't see any more hands up, but last call, anybody have any last minute questions or points of discussion? All right, then, let's bring it to a vote. I'm gonna just go down the line that I have on my list. James Mullen,
Yes.
John Merrow,
Yes.
Joanne Reedy,
Yes,
Karen Brooks,
Yes,
Michael Connors,
Yes.
and me, yes. So resolution passes 7-0. Okay, let's move on to the recommended action for the NYLAF agreement. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approve the amended investment consulting and marketing agreement to PMA Asset Management LLC and PMA Securities LLC as per attached resolution. Do I have a motion to accept the resolution? James Mullen, a second? I need a second for the motion. John Merrow. Okay, any discussion? Mike Connors.
In the, when you get down to where it says resolved, under A, it does say the definitions as set forth in Article 1 of the agreement shall be amended as follows, that the investment consultant means PMA Asset Management LLC. I don't know that that's really what we're looking for there. Isn't it that the name of the company is changing to PMA Asset Management and not the definition of investment consultant? Is that correct?
I'm not exactly sure the answer to your question, but it may be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. This is the standard agreement that came from New York LAF, and Dan reviewed it with consult, and as read is what is presented. So
Okay, it just doesn't seem to make sense because then it goes on and says marketing agent means PMA consultants. That's not what marketing agent means. The marketing agent may be PMA consultants as if the name changes from the prior to PMA. But I don't know that we're rewriting the definition of what the investment consultant and marketing agents are.
we're actually not rewriting anything. This is the agreement that went out to all school districts and municipalities that New York LAF is working with. And this is what was presented to us from a regulatory perspective in order to keep our relationship with them. So it's not, yes, it is an agreement between us and NYLAF, but it's not something that's customized by us with NYLAF. It's a regulatory document because of these changes. So
I know, I'm not debating that, but I mean, if NYLAF is gonna change their name to PMA Asset Management, I mean, that's what it should say, and not that the term investment consultant is PMA. I mean, the PMA may be the investment consultant, but it doesn't replace the definition.
okay.
Again, it may be semantics. You know, I just prefer that it was right.
Yeah,
According to our attorney, it's right. So I don't, and it's not to be difficult. There may be a specific reason why it's written this way that I'm familiar with. You know, it's up to the board to table it, and I can ask that specific question. But if we don't get this agreement tonight, we actually lose our relationship with the this investment group, so.
Yeah, I think, to your point, Mike, Mike Connors, I think it's just the way they use the word definition. Usually a definition is not, usually is a little bit more of a firm, way of use. I've recognized that myself, but I'm pretty sure that's all this does is change the name. It's just the way they use
Right,
it.
it's similar to when we have some agreements, instead of writing out Marlboro Central School District, there will be some reference in an earlier clause that says Marlboro Central School District, also known as the district, so that later on in the agreement, you just have to write the district instead of having to write out Marlboro Central School District. So maybe that's their purpose there, investment consultant, rather than writing out PMA Asset Management LLC every time.
That's exactly what it's for.
Marketing agent instead of P Securities LLC.
Yeah, we're not seeing the broader contract, sometimes it gets confusing, right? We're only seeing the piece that's amended.
And this refers to a specific board policy in the 8,000 section that you folks give the specific authority for specific types of funds that we're allowed to invest our cash in, rather than keeping it just in a bank. The district has used this firm for probably about 20 years. There was a period in the mid to late 2000s where most municipalities and school districts moved away from them because of the market crash, and investing in the market was a horrible thing to do at that point. So a lot of municipalities, including the school district, moved their cash assets into money markets and certificate of deposit and regular bank accounts. Around back in the 2015-2016 timeframe, on recommendation with our financial consultant and our auditor, we reinstituted this relationship. So it just gives you a historical perspective on it. Certainly, if the board's uncomfortable with the language as is, we would need to go back to square one and reestablish a new relationship with them. But if that's what the board wants us to do, we can do that and get some clarity on maybe taking the word definition out of that subset A. But that's up to the board to.
Actually, looking at this again, I mean, I don't, that's my personal opinion, I don't think we have a need to. If anybody thinks we should, let's talk about it. But in looking at this again, in the agenda, the title of the document is called NYLAF name change, but it's not NYLAF that's changing. That's the overall agreement called the invest. That's the overall agreement, I believe. And then the investment consultant, what's the terminology used? The investment consultant was a different name, now being renamed, and the marketing agent, same thing. So within that agreement, basically the vendors, if it changes his name, or the people that are actually doing these functions are getting renamed. I think that's all it is.
John,
That is what it is. But yes, sorry, Karen.
I just wanted to say, I just wanted to reaffirm, you said that Dan from our legal group actually reviewed this already? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, Dan Pettigrew reviewed it. Dan Pettigrew reviewed it and gave us a written authority for putting it on the agenda.
If we have that, I'm fine with moving ahead.
John Mary, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm listening to everything, and I think I'm fine moving ahead as well. But my question is, for Mike Connors and Mike Brooks, are you nervous about us being at any risk based on how it works? Is there something that could happen here? Is that why you guys are concerned? Is that why you're concerned about Mike Connors? Or is it just you want to get it correct?
Oops, it just dropped it off. I don't want to be difficult, and it's not correct or incorrect. This is the language of the contract and the agreement, and it's been approved and recommended by the attorney. So, I don't.
Yeah, because for me, if it's a name change thing, it's fine with me. I'm wondering why we're putting ourselves at risk as well.
This is it wouldn't be on the agenda if I was worried about it. So I have full recommendation.
Yeah, we're talking about changing the name of existing people who are doing the function today, right? So it's just a name change. right, I think we're ready to vote. We just lost Mike again. Oh, sorry, Joanne, you have a question?
I do, John. My question basically is how long have we had this document before we put it on the agenda?
It was reviewed by Dan last week and put on the agenda this week.
So we just got this, I mean, shouldn't this company have given us at least a 30-day to 60-day notice? I mean, this is kind of, again, a quick thing, here, it's on the agenda, let's vote on it, that's it. I mean, even when you get a bank account statement, you have 30 days.
Let me make it simple for everybody. We can absolutely pull this off the agenda and remove our relationship with New York Liquid Asset Fund. This is simply just a name change to keep our relationship with them. So I think that maybe we're overcomplicating it, but I also want to be respectful that if the full board tells me we're not comfortable with this, let's take our money out of our asset fund and put it all into the bank and not do this. The authority we have for this is under board policy, and we're following board policy. This is simply just a regulatory requirement because of a name change. And you folks need to authorize acknowledging really that the name changed in a public meeting. So that's what it is.
And I get that.
If we don't approve it, and if we did it back in December, we can't change the language on this. Because this is the universal document that goes to every single municipality and school district that works with NYLAF.
I'm not arguing that. All I'm saying is they should have given us more time when they do this. This way we can have these discussions as a board and talk about it. Not just here, it's on the agenda, let's do it. I mean, I don't understand. They only gave us 7-day notice, basically, or 14 days notice.
I've said my piece.
Right. I just wanted to put that out there because of that. I mean, are there other contracts that have come up and say, okay, we have to approve it right now?
Yes.
Because, I mean, I don't understand
Yes,
what other contracts have.
there will be those kind of situations, and you have the right to say yes or no to them.
Okay, looks like Michael Connors is here, just lost his video, so that's fine. All right, let's go to a vote on this. We already made the motion, so let's go to the vote. I'm gonna go down the list again. Same way. James Mullen,
Yes.
John Morrow,
Yes.
Joanne Reed,
Yeah,
Karen Brooks,
Yes.
Michael Connors,
No.
and myself, yes. Okay, resolution passed 6-1. All right, moving on. I see Joanne hand up.
okay. I've noticed in the last couple of board meetings, actually a little bit more than the last couple of board meetings, so I would like to bring something new up. I think it's time that we separate our consent agenda. Personnel should be in one. Our board meetings, CSE meetings should be put in another, contract should be put in another. Because what happens is every time we vote and if somebody does say no, it looks like we're saying no to the whole agenda. And that's not being fair to us or the people that we're dealing with or the consent agenda anyway. So if I have to make a motion, I will make a motion on that. But I think we really need to separate it instead of putting everything in one block. It needs to be separated professionally into 3 different ways, 3 different blocks.
Well, can you say it again? Which ones did you say you're suggesting to break it up?
Our consent agenda, if we put personnel in one, the second one would be our board meetings, CSE meetings, donations can go in one, contracts should be going in another one. This way, like things like this now that we're having discussions on, it would be an easier way to vote.
Okay,
And
realize
the
the
folks might know where we are.
contract one that we're talking about, in this case, NYLAF, is in its own recommended action.
I'm not talking about that one, I'm talking about the buses, whatever it is, teachers, they should have their own consent agenda.
Well,
And
Yeah, that would,
even-
that would make it, just so you understand the history of it too, because you guys recall when I first came, we had agendas that were 15, 20 pages long, and there was a separate item for every single item, and it took us forever to go through an agenda. Anything that goes in the consent agenda are routine matters that are typical on an annual basis. Anything that is not typical, for example, this NYLAF agreement is put out as recommended actions. I designed the agenda based upon what we agreed on for a format. If the board so chooses to have me change the format, I have no problem with that. As we separate out the consent agenda into what you're saying, Joanne, which is fine, it's no longer a consent agenda. It now becomes, in this particular example, you would have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7 different action items, and so all recommended actions.
Well,
So,
Mike, there should have to be a way that we could still have a consent agenda, but they have to be separate. This is not really, I've had people in our community, not knowing what's going on and think that we're just putting everything in one big bag and saying, here, vote. This is the way
we
it
are
goes.
doing, we actually are doing that, and
Well,
it's helping to streamline the meeting, but you, as you know, you can pull out any item and we automatically pull that item out.
Right.
If you tell me ahead of time, I pull it out before the meeting, so.
Yeah,
And
that's what,
I think also, no offense, but that's why we were voted on, was to make sure that we do make the right decision. And putting it all in one big bag, saying, here, vote, it's not, I find it very upsetting to see that every time that we go to, vote, that we have different things, and there are times that you don't wanna say no, but now you have to say no to everything.
well, first
And
of all,
that's not really being fair.
well, let's just make sure we're clear on the way this works. The definition of a consent agenda is in fact that we put multiple things under one heading for the purpose of voting all at once. That's what we have now, and this is what we adopted, I forget, a year or two ago, whatever it was. But at any given point in any meeting, either we prefer it to be before the meeting, so it's already being done and we don't have to do extra votes, but we can do it before the meeting or we can do it in the meeting. We can always separate out any one of these, like when we need to. Like, I think it was just the last meeting, I made a motion to separate out something related to minimum wage. And at the time, we didn't vote on it, or it didn't pass in the vote, or nobody even seconded it, actually. So we didn't do it, but we have that option any given week, or doing it ahead of time so we wouldn't even need a vote, just ask Mike to separate them out, because, for example, personnel recommendations, there have been times when people feel like there's somebody being voted on that there's a prior relationship and they didn't want to be part of that vote, so we separate it out. Same thing with contractual.
Yeah, but
Right,
that's
so-
not always true, John.
It's not always true, no. I'm
Because
not-
a lot of times that we do need things that can be separated, and they're not separated.
Okay,
So
but
again,
again,
if you did it into 3 different spots, what is the big deal if you did it into 3 different, levels? I mean,
the,
I'd like
the
to know
impact,
everything.
the impact is, as Mike explained at the beginning, it would drag out the meeting for these individual votes that were routine and start to become, just dragging out the meeting a little bit, which today in a meeting like this, I'd like to keep it and we separate it out as needed, and I don't think I don't see us how often doing that, but when we do, I've found everybody's pretty agreeable to break it out.
Well, I feel like a little insulted just where you said it's all to make the time shorter. That's not what we're here for. We're here to listen, to figure out what we need to do for our students, our staff, our community. And I'm not, that's why I ran, not to do wham, bam, thank you, and we're out of here. I expect to have, a meeting where we're all having a conversation about even anything on this consent agenda. And like I said, there's times that somebody does want things separated out, and one person or 2 people will say yes, and everybody else says no. So again, if you break it down, it would make it a little easier even for the community, because they would understand it a little bit more with contracts and different things that we're all in.
Karen has her hand up, I'll get to you one second, Karen, if I could just say,
Yes,
I assure you all that anytime any of you just send me an email or call me, I will automatically remove, there's no need for a motion. Any individual that asks to have a note item moved out into recommended actions, I automatically move it. And during the meeting, any individual that asks to have something moved out can have it also moved out. So
I just want to
That's-
point out that we've talked about this in the past, and we get this agenda on Monday. When we review it on Monday, if there's something in there, I know myself, I've even sent an email when we move something out. We should all be reviewing this Monday, and if there is something on Monday, that's when it should be moved out of the consent agenda and put to the side. If we're not noticing it until tonight, or 24 hours before, that means we're not going through documents before the meeting, and we really need to do that. That's just my point with this. I also have another topic I want to bring up. May I bring that up at this point?
Well, I just wanted to say, Karen, that's not always true, because I do get it, but if you're emailing Mike on board doesn't know that, because it's a private conversation between you and Mike. And the rest of us don't know what you're saying, or anybody else on the board. That's why I think, I mean, not that we would answer you, but at least this way you would know, and then we could call Mike and say,
I
hey, Mike,
always
we agree with
do
Karen,
any kind
or
of
we
email.
don't.
I always do the board president and I do the superintendent. That's what
Again, but we don't know what Frank is doing, because again, Frank is only the liaison to the board. He is not all of us. He's only the board liaison. He is no different than the rest of us. So if you're asking a question, and this is where I will disagree with Frank, everybody should know the same question that he's getting. He is only the board liaison. And if you went through school board view, you would know that. He has no more power than the rest of us.
I
So again,
understand that,
hold
Joanne,
on,
but we
people,
don't
hold
need
on.
to, otherwise it goes into a violation of open meeting when we start bringing that up, because people can't control themselves and start commenting. So
you
I
don't need to find
always
out the
go
way
to
to
Frank,
do
and
this.
if
This
something
way,
he feels or Mike feels they, need to go out, they go out. I really do feel though, if we are doing our job as elected members of the board and we are diligent in reviewing the matters, we are reviewing them and starting to at least review the agenda. And I personally don't feel if, I'm voting on something that is a relative of mine in the district, that I need to tell the whole board I want it pulled out because of the fact that, you know, I have cousins in this district. I have, my own immediate family in this district. I have a lot of extended family in this district. And I feel that that's really something I need to tell the board. I think that's something more I need to tell Mike. I don't want to vote on this because this would affect, I feel that I need to abstain. Can we pull it out?
Okay, so let me stop everybody for 1 second. There's a couple of hands up. For Karen, you made the point, you're right, we're supposed to do it on Monday, but let's just be clear, that doesn't restrict us from having it changed on Tuesday or Wednesday, right? If I mentioned this last meeting, that not everybody gets to do it on Monday. I'm a big violator of that. I often don't see it until Tuesday or Wednesday. And if it's really important, I'll make a request to do something. If it's not, we'll take it up in the meeting. So the ability is there. Nobody is locked into this agenda. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Now, if somebody wants to make a motion to separate it out, we can vote on it and go against what we, or change, not go against, but change what we had done originally, however that was. But let's get around to people who got their hands up so that someone else can talk. So let me go, John Merrill. Mute button, John.
You're muted, John.
So I won't be brief because I was muted and I took up the time in the beginning. But I feel we already have two ways to get stuff off the consent agenda that's pretty easy for us to do, so I don't see that we need a third way. And anytime we've had debates in public, we voted on taking things off, and if it fails 5-2 or 4-3, well, that's the way it goes because it wasn't going to come off anyway because the majority of the board didn't want it that way. So I'm fine leaving it as is, but I understand Joanne's point. You feel like you're going against other things, but as long as you make your voices heard, people know what you're voting on, voting for, voting against. So that's just my opinion. I'm leave it as is.
You're muted, John. I'll form the agenda any way the board wants. 6-1, half a dozen, 2 to me. But John, you're muted, sorry.
Oh, I'm muted. I'm sorry. Michael Connor, I see your hand up, but muted. You want to go next?
Sure. Mine is not about the consent agenda. I'm looking at a capital project, and I just want some direction, if I may, from maybe Michael, the board, as to how to present it. I have a revenue neutral program. It's a capital project that would enhance the value of a Marlboro education, and I'm looking for some guidance as to how you want that presented.
I'm not sure what you mean there, Michael. You want to present a potential idea for a capital project over and above what we've got in our current Vision 2020?
That's correct. This is a longer term project for the district.
You know what, actually, I thought about that, Mike, that you just said it just now. It hit my mind. That probably would be something that would be best to start at the facilities committee. And let the facilities committee kind of vet it through and then let that fall up to the full board.
Yeah, that's
Since
probably a
it's
good
capital in
idea.
nature, facilities in nature.
Yeah, and actually, Michael, we could, in those facilities meetings, I'm a member of those. I mean, other people could join in and explain, be there for those, for the time you want to explain it to folks and talk it through. I think that's a good way to get it started, so we can, put it on, because it should, or could, depending on what it is, potentially wind up in Vision 2020 if we wind up with some extra money at the end or whatever, or if it's related to an existing project or subcomponent in the big project that would be a modification, they would definitely take it up within Vision 2020.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks. That's a good idea, though. So if you write that out, Michael, you go in Michael, I keep changing.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so I'll call you Michael and Mike Brooks. But Michael, if you want to write that up in some level of detail that you think is appropriate, and to the facilities committee and copying the rest of the board, I think that'd be a good place to take it up. Okay,
Rose and I will add it to the agenda, Mike.
Karen.
Mine deals with students and the new attendance laws. I was wondering if there's by chance, maybe the next board meeting, we could get an update of the number of kids that are absent, or what the state would consider absent 10 or more instructional days in a row that haven't attended school. And I was wondering if we could get a report too as to what the interventions are that the district is putting in place to make sure that these kids do try to get brought back into school, either hybrid or remotely, if that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know if Robin is prepared to speak to any of that, but perhaps that might be something we can also bring into that reflection meeting approach with principals and Robin in March.
It would probably be better then, because I know that even my own daughter coming back to school after the break was having some issues, and it's still only the first week. I would like to know if there's any issues after break with kids returning as well, especially with depression, what's going on. It's the number that I'm seeing with the state and the new attendance is 10 to 20 days that the kids are absent. And I would just like to know that and what our interventions are we have in place. I'm seeing a lot of districts look at this, and I would just be interested in what we're doing to help these kids, because we really need to make sure that's our treasure, why we're all here. And I just want to
Robin, can you speak to any of that in general terms? Do you have anything that you can
In general, I can tell you that we are tracking students' attendance. We do have attendance committees at every building. We are meeting weekly. We do have all types of spreadsheets where we are keeping track of those students who are either missing meets or not attending. I will tell you, we have no students that are ghosted. We are in contact with every single one of our students. And I have to say, that is, to the efforts of our building administrators, our school counselors, our teachers, our nurses. This is daily, going to parents' houses, reaching out, having Google Meets. If it's a technology issue, having our ITTAs working with parents. We are really, I could show you reams and reams of charts, but we can definitely report on that. But I will tell you that we are working diligently every day to make sure that, our kids are learning.
I have to tell you, you read my mind, because the ghosting piece is exactly what I was worried about. So thank you so much. That's good to hear. I'm really happy about that.
You're welcome.
We don't have
Thank
any.
you. Thanks for asking.
Okay, any other new business you want to discuss? Karen, your hand's still up. Do you have something up? Okay, never mind. Joanne, do you want, or Michael, sorry.
Yeah, there was a piece of legislation that passed today that, that gives the state power to remove someone from their home that they believe to be a public health risk. Have we received any notification or guidance on that? And will the school district have any responsibility in that process? I realize.
Passed or what's passed or proposed today?
No, it was actually passed today.
Can you send me any information on that first?
Yes, let me get the bill and send it to
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
So if Mike he hasn't heard about it, I'm sure we don't have any guidance yet, right, Michael?
No, not yet. I'm not familiar with it. So yeah, please send it on.
Well, it's been, you know, it was batted around the legislature in December when I first learned of it, and seemed to pass without any opposition today. But let me get you the details on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joanne?
Okay, I just have something, also, when we send out, text messages about COVID letters, can we make sure we get a copy of it, please, Mike? Because then I always have to go on the website and look for it when you send an update, like the last one.
Well, I
Normally we're very
apologize.
good about-
Usually we do. I just missed you on this one. Sorry.
Yeah, normally that's what you say, you're very good about it, and, because when I got the text, I was like, what's going on, and then I had to look for it, and then I found it, so,
Gotcha. Yep. It's on us. Yep.
Joanne, I thought the same thing because I didn't get the email that normally follows, but
right.
it was actually linked in the text message.
I know, but normally
letter
we
was
get a
in
separate
there.
one, because it doesn't always link in mine anyway.
Right, no, normally we get a separate email, but this last one, because I was waiting for the email also and never got it. But then when I went back to the text message, there was a link to the PDF.
Right,
in that text.
right, because I had already gone to the website and looked, and I went back to the text message, right, it did link it that way. And the other thing.
Yep, we'll drop that one. I'll follow up with Mike on that, because usually he gets that forwarded out to you. And Teresa sends the connections that we send out to you guys usually too. So yeah, we'll double our efforts on it. Sorry.
Thank you, and just to make sure that all our paperwork is on Monday. That we do get it all, because sometimes I notice, like in the middle of the week, you're sending different reports or whatever, so if we get everything on Monday, it makes it easier, because like John said, sometimes we're not ready, or like before a meeting or the day before, sometimes, it's a little hard, I have to admit, it's a little
I
hard.
publish my agenda. Yeah, I publish my agenda on Monday every time. And then I try to keep you guys as fresh as possible with any updates all along. So, yeah, I try to get you information as soon as it's available. So.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to make a decision or whatever we're doing, is if we're getting it on a Thursday morning or a Wednesday. That's why I'm.
But let me.
On Friday.
Joanne, I mean, am I missing something? No, I publish the agenda on Monday with all of the documents every Monday.
Like I said, I know you just sent us another copy of this presentation that's still up. And I know
Only
you have,
copy.
because you have to.
As soon as that was finished tonight, I published it and sent it out to you guys. Yeah. Yeah, that normally wouldn't go in the package on Monday, because that's my presentation night.
Well, not only that, you're changing it up through Thursday.
Right up to
morning, probably,
yeah.
right? I mean, I'm just giving you guys a choice. Some of the information we got today just came from the meeting, was it yesterday, Mike, with the appendix?
Oh, yeah.
I happen to know today because I'm filling in for Frank. I've been talking to Mike all week about, well, not all week, once really, but checking in with him to see what was going on, if we needed any changes or if we needed to talk about it. So, Mike Connors, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just looked it up. It was actually an amendment to the New York Public Health Law 2120A. If you get a chance to look that up.
What's that number again, Mike?
2120A, which gives the governor further reaching authority to detain people that his office deems to be public health hazard.
Well, that seems distressing.
Think.
I will,
Dire fist.
I will certainly look at that and find out what's going on with it.
Okay, James Mullen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I know it's now the new year and supposedly we are allowed to have sports starting. Are we still looking to have sports starting? I know it's not something we really has been on our radar, but
Yeah, low risk sports practices begin on Tuesday, or Monday, really, on Monday, and then competition in the section begins the week of the 19th. So, or practices, I guess, start the week of the 19th as per the section. So, yep, that's for the low risk. The high risk, I believe, is going to be postponed by the governor. I saw a news article on that today.
Yeah, that's still up in the air, there's debate about it.
that's great. Thank you.
So basically, track and swimming for us is starting.
Joanne, is that hand up again, or you come before? Okay, Michael Connors? Okay. That's it for new business. Joanne, did you want to raise a motion, or do that at another time?
No, I mean, everybody seems to be comfortable with the agenda, so I'll just leave it alone. I just, like I said, I just hope that when we do have the discussion and maybe we have to separate, that we do separate it to, because everybody,
Well, I think we should, to your point, I think we should keep an eye on it. If we see one of those particular items in the consent agenda are consistently being asked to be pulled out, then we should regularly keep it out in the other actions, recommended actions. If it bounces around based on certain circumstances, I think it's easier to just keep it where it is and move it out as needed. You should just be aware of that. Try to get, I know I'm the first one to tell you, I don't always get to it on Monday, but we should try to get to it on Monday or Tuesday so we can make the request. And it only takes a request. Like Karen was explaining, you should try to copy the board, but if you have a reason not to, you can go right to Mike, and if we have a question, we'll discuss it in a public meeting, which is the way it should be anyway, right? To limit any other discussion that should be in public, which is sometimes easier to forget when you get an email, right? And you're just trying to get it out in between your other actions of the day. So, all right. So with that said, we'll move to old business. Everybody have any old business? I see head shaking. No. So we'll pass on that. Any other items? More head shaking. No hands. We can't do any recognition of district residents, so we will, anybody have a motion to adjourn? Sorry, I clicked off the screen. Motion by Karen Brooks. Do we have a second? Joanne Reed. Motion accepted. Meeting adjourned. Thanks everybody for your time. Oh, sorry, got me roll call, yeah. Do that, you got me thinking about the meeting time. Let's do a roll call. Ooh, that seems wrong. I was looking for the words. All right, James Mullen.
Yes.
John Marrow, you want to join?
Yeah.
Joanne Reed.
yes.
Karen Brooks.
Yes, and Happy New Year to everyone.
All right, Michael Connors.
Yes.
And on that note, definitely yes for me.
Happy New Year, everybody.
All right, everybody, have a good night.
Good night.